Welcome to a special edition from Samso. We'll be talking to identities in the industry. So today we're at the UWA club here in Crawley, and I've got Ashok Parekh here, who is the Irish King of Kalgoorlie. Would be that a good phrase?
Oh, thank you very much. That's a bit...
Look, Ashok, you've been around for a long time,
Yep.
been in the industry. You've just been saying that you've been living in Kalgoorlie since 1984. Anyone who's in our industry will know your name, or you at least. So, look, Ashok, I've been really privileged to have you here to have a chat, because what I really want to share with viewers is your thoughts and wisdom over the years. You know, you've seen a lot, you've heard a lot, and a lot of people out there who are new to our industry would never have been able to have this conversation. So, Ashok, maybe just give us a quick intro to yourself, because there's a long conversation.
Okay, well, look, thank you very much for inviting me here. It's a pleasure to be here. My background is I was born and brought up in Ireland, in Dublin. Father was Indian, mother was Irish, born, brought up there. Mum died at 4. I went to boarding school at 4.5 till I was 18. And then when I was 18, my dad lost everything, so I went to England, worked in a cider factory for a year, and I came to Australia in 1975, and my dad got a job in Kalgoorlie. I went there, worked on the mines for a year as a greaser, top greaser, not. Then I went to Waite, which is now Curtin University, in 1975 to 78, and did a Bachelor of Business there. And as I was saying before, I had an economics teacher in 76, his name was Colin Barnett, who later became Premier of West Australia. I then joined a chartered firm, Western James, which became Dewsbury's Ernst & Winnie Ernst & Young in 1978 to 84, became a tax manager. And then I left and went to Kalgoorlie and set up my own accounting firm with no clients. And I've been in Kalgoorlie since there. Since 84, I've been involved in hotels, nightclubs, the famous Palace Hotel I own. In Kalgoorlie, the Australia Hotel I own, and I've been involved in mining, gold mining, since the 80s with private gold mining operations and helping public companies, etc. A lot of the people in the mining industry in West Australia, I know. I'm 65 years old, so I've been around a long time, and I've acted for a lot of managing directors and chairmen of public listed companies over the years, and I've been very good friends of all of these people.
Okay. Look, you said you went to Kalgoorlie, no clients, you set up business, chartered accountant. Obviously, your story turned well. What was it like then, let's say, in our industry, the mineral exploration industry, the mining industry? What was it then in Kalgoorlie? Because we've had many ups and down cycles. Too many I'm a geologist, so I know all about it. One day you got a job, next day you don't. So what was it like then at that time?
Well, look, what's interesting is when I went to school in Ireland, in the last year I was there in 1974, we heard about Poseidon.
Ah, yes.
In Ireland. And I always said, well, that's interesting, Poseidon, where all these people made all this money on nickel. Yeah. I landed up in Kalgoorlie, and I've seen over the years, since 1970s, to now, a lot of ups and downs in Kalgoorlie. Particularly, I was there in 1987 when we had the share market crash in October, and I and a couple of friends borrowed 1.2 million to buy a nightclub when we had no money, paying 18% interest.
Yes.
And that 87 crash was very big in Kalgoorlie in the mining industry. And there's been lots of ups and downs, but what's great today is we're seeing a situation in the mining industry where places like Kalgoorlie are not just reliant on gold and a bit nickel. You've got gold, you've got nickel, you've got lithium, silver, zinc, palladium, rare earths now with Lynas coming to town. So it's ups and downs. I've seen a lot of people over the years, being a chartered accountant and a tax advisor, make a lot of money and lose a lot of money over the years. And it's been an interesting journey for me, where you advise people on what to do and not to do. And I think now we are much more mature in the mining industry. We've got a better mining industry, we've got a safer mining industry, and we've got a lot of very good companies And a lot of them have come from Kalgoorlie. Some of the biggest, the Northern Star Resources. The, mentioned Silverlake before, the Ramelius. A lot of these gold mining companies, metals exploration. A lot of people in the mining industry, which are School of Mines graduates from Kalgoorlie, have resulted in becoming the MDs and chairman of all these public listed companies.
I mean, when everyone in our industry think of Kalgoorlie, when I did my undergrad, I came out and, you knew nothing, but you went out to work. So I was at Bronze Wing with Great Central Mines. At that time, Great Central Mines was doing a lot of work, especially around the Mount Pleasant area. How do you see, the expenditure then and the expansion now? Because now I feel, correct me if I'm wrong, that we're in a time where this industry has never seen the amount of money and the ease of money coming into the industry. What was it then? Because Great Central at that time was drilling everywhere. They were spending a lot of money. How is that compared to today's activities?
Well, I think really going back to what you're talking about, I remember in the 80s, in 85, 90, I acted for a client, which best friend, the Wright family. We did private gold mining for 18 to 20 years, one of the biggest private gold mining. We were producing when gold was selling at $300 an ounce. When you look at it today, it's probably 2,631 Australian ounce. We were producing gold at $300 an ounce. Your expenditure, you tried to limit the expenditure because the income coming in was minimal. I think today, it's the price of commodity prices, whether it's gold, nickel, is extraordinary. And I think that the profit margin for a very well and good operation can make a lot of money. And that's why we see these big companies with a lot of shareholders, and the amount of money that's been pumped into the mining industry with nickel, gold, lithium, etc. The rewards are much better than they were 20, 30 years ago.
I mean, I sort of mentioned this too before. The first time I sort of met you in person was when the listing of Silverlake Resources, which you just recently just mentioned that you were part of setting it up. But that story was the first time I learned how packages are put together for companies to work in, and how, because everyone says, oh, well, that guy's been there, they've been there, surely there's nothing left, But that was when I understood, when all these packages put together, you start seeing and giving you the ability to work on projects that have big strike length and ability to move, right?
Yeah, a lot of people wouldn't realize it, but Silverlake Resources, which is now a $2 billion company, was set up by a great bunch of blokes: Paul Chapman, Les Davis, Chris Banaszak, Brian Kennedy, Peter Johnson, and one or two others. And they come up with this idea to Silverlake Resources, which was Kambalda, where they worked. Les Davis came to see me, I'm still his accountant today, with this idea we're going to have a company. I got a project which was Daisy Milano, which were organized through Perilia to buy it off them. We were only a $1 million share, $1 million raised to do that. Put it together. Les Davis and Paul Chapman, chairman, was fantastic. They put it together. I got the deal for them. I went to them and said, look, I've got a deal that can work. Put the deal together, got paid in shares with my great partner, the Wright family, Ray Wright family. And that became Silverlake. And Silverlake, then, we owned 7% at that stage, is now the $2 billion company it is today. So that's what happens in Kalgoorlie. You've seen it with Northern Star Resources, which is a $12 billion company today, which was set up by people like Bill Beaumont, Mick Photius and them years ago. And that today, with the merger with Saracen, Northern Star, is this massive gold mining company. That was started in Kalgoorlie as well. And there's been multiple of these companies.
Yeah, I mean, everyone, when they think of WA, when they think of Australia as a resource place, I think majority of people will think Kalgoorlie, even though we got resources all over the place, we've got fantastic regions everywhere, but people tend to just focus on Kalgoorlie of the folklore, I guess, the Paddy Hannan story.
Yeah.
And I always quote this, is that you know, and I heard this from somewhere, so I didn't come up with this, but people will say, look, there are many people who wants to be a Paddy Hannan, but they've not been successful. But there are lots of people who fed those people who want to be Paddy Hannan, who have done very well. It's the supply of this, and I think that's the mystery, the mystique of our industry, is that everybody wants to be Paddy Hannan, right?
That's right. Look, Paddy Hannan, Kalgoorlie was founded by the three Irishmen, and so what's happened there is, when you go back to history in Kalgoorlie, and if you go to the graveyards, you can see whether it's the Irish, the Croatians, the Italians, Malaysian, whatever it is, Afghans, etc. They were the base people of Kalgoorlie. They went out there and they found this gold, you know. And you know, we've got a tradition. You know, we've got to look back on this thing. Today's people that you see in Kalgoorlie, particularly with the mining companies, there's been a lot of success because of the WA School of Mines in Kalgoorlie. If you look at some of these people out there, like the Bill Beermonts, the Raleigh Finlaysons, Simon Jessops, the Stuart Tonkins, the Luke Tonkin, all of these are School of Mines students. They've all risen to the top, yeah, from being in Kalgoorlie School of Mines. And I think regional centres like Kalgoorlie, they base you. You become the same person that you were 20, 30 years ago. You never think you're more important than anybody else. And I think that's very important in the mining industry, is that you don't put yourself above somebody else, even if you are successful, because you were once that student down there. And I think that's a very, very important thing about Kalgoorlie, that it's brought a lot of these mining leaders, and the whole of West Australia is full of ex-Kalgoorlie people.
I think it's general. I mean, I'm 52, edging on a good cricket score already. When I first started in this industry, you know, being, you know, an ethnic minority, going to sort of rough places, my questions asked by people was, you know, what was it like? I said, well, I've never faced any issues, and I think that's a testimony of our industry, is that we're all very down to earth kind of people, strong characters, you know, but we don't look past those things. You do your thing, and that's the expectations that they judge you by. So that's why I sort of think this industry is really great, because I learned so much from that Silverlake story. And I was with the Photius group, and I remember Bill sitting in that little 3x4. In fact, it might even be less than 3x4 in the office in Balcatta, and where they are today, right? It's an amazing journey, and I think that's why, you know, when I try and talk to people like yourself, I want those insights out from all those years. You know, you've seen so many success stories, you've seen so many failures, and vice versa.
It's interesting because I used to own the Exchange Hotel in Kalgoorlie. I own the Palace in Australia now, and I sold the Exchange in the 2008. But all of those School of Mines students, I used to sponsor, drink with them. You're going back 15, 20 years. That's why I got to know a lot of them, and then a lot of them know me. And you know, they've graduated now from there to what they are today. You know, and people even like Bill. Bill's one of the nicest blokes you can meet in your life. He's from Esperance. Raleigh Finlayson, one of the nicest blokes you could meet. He's from Leonora. Yeah, the Tonkins are from, you know, Leonora, Kalgoorlie. They've all got this background of, you know, which is very good when you go back and you see. And I think Kalgoorlie, people don't judge you. Whether you're at the bottom or you're at the top, you're the same person. You know, in my public speaking I do, you can go into a Kalgoorlie pub with no job, no money, nowhere to live. And you can walk out of the pub, you got a job, you got somewhere to live, and you got food on the table. That's what people are like. It's a genuine situation there.
Yeah. I mean, look, in all my time in the field and around and meeting people, you know, you walk into a pub and they're all, you know, burly blokes. Never have I ever been faced with any indiscretion in terms of your race or what you look like or something, you know. It's always just very overpowered in terms of that.
Yeah, well, look, I'm half Indian. My dad was Indian. My mum was Irish. You know, I've never seen anything like that. And I think it's a heritage. We were all brought up in the regional areas like Kalgoorlie with the Afghan, Chinese, Croatian, Italian, Irish, the mixture was so great that it's developed like that into what it is today. And I think these regional areas are a great place to have the background in learning, at School of Mines. I spoke to another compatriot from Malaysia who was tied up at Linus, one of the big bosses. He did his graduate stuff in Kalgoorlie and around the place.
So Kalgoorlie, when you're first there, has gone in lots of ups and downs. I remember in the early 90s, Kalgoorlie was a buzz. Nightclub was happening and everything. Then it sort of quietened down, became a family town, resurrected itself as a family town. What's your narrative on that journey?
Well, I think it's been difficult for a lot of people in that, where you've got, in the mining industry, boom and bust situations, you get people who do well, and then you get people who lose everything. And when you see that happening, over 1, 2, 3 times, you say to yourself, people have got to learn, They've got to learn when you've got money. I remember in Kambalda, when Western Mining was selling houses at $16,000 a house. And I was telling everybody, just buy the house, because I remember the time in Kambalda when nickel came on, when the Junk brothers, Ian and Lee Junk, which was Donegal Resources with the Mytel joint venture, they were the first people ever to buy a mine with Clough Engineering and Mincor in Kambalda, a nickel mine, yeah? So there's all of these developments. So I think really, with the ups and downs, what we need to do is we need to learn in a downturn what's going on. We've got to learn by example what's happened.
Yeah. I mean, Norseman was, at one stage, was booming, right? Houses was worth 100,000 and then it bust and you couldn't give it away for 10,000. But I think that's just the industry.
I agree. I mean, I look at Norseman and I love going to Norseman. Go there a couple of times a year to Esperance. Coolgardie is another area. I mean, Coolgardie to me should be one of the biggest mining areas in West Australia. Unfortunately, there's not been much developments there over the last 10 years, but the potential is great. Menzies is another area. Fantastic potential, but hasn't lived up to that. Now maybe with Raleigh Finlayson and Genesis, and that might develop, There are areas out there which have got lots of gold, which have not been developed in West Australia.
I think that's why I always tell people this Norseman will learn about, and it's just one of many that's out there. It's 1,600 kilometres. You've got so much happening. You've got it feeding the Superpit. Superpit's been around for so long. You've got, as you said, you've got gold, you've got copper, you've got nickel, you've got lithium, you've got silver, which I didn't realise until McPherson popped out. And I thought, oh, geez, where would that come from?
Yeah.
And you've got the whole stretch of mineralogy, and people finding palladium down sort of Norseman way, and then you've got the Albany Fraser that kicks off from there. But it's so much happening, and I think in the past we never really had that surge of exploration funding. It was drips and drabs. I think this time around with so much money around and in all commodity prices rising for reasons of something that we'll really find out in time, this will probably kick in a lot more activities. I mean, Coolgardie, as you said, fantastic township. The buildings, the architecture is fantastic, but it's just, as you said, not much happening. It's only 60 k's from...
Yeah, look, it's unfortunate. I think the Chinese company Shandong Gold bought a big stake through Focus, and I don't think they were served well by the people in West Australia who were involved in that company,
Yeah.
and that a lot of their money was flitted away, in my opinion. But they've got great potential now. I think the Superpit is going to be massive. If I had to predict anything, I think the Superpit in Kalgoorlie will double its capacity in a milling, and then they've got 100 million tons of ore just sitting there they can put through the mill. Their underground potential with Mount Charlotte, etc., which has come from the Bill Beaumont, Stuart Tonkin era takeover, has shown massive potential. And I think that for the next 50, 100 years in Kalgoorlie, you're going to have the Northern Star Resources model there. And it will continue. They will get bigger. There's just so much gold around. In relation to silver zinc, I'm involved with Horizon Minerals, HRZ, and we've got, besides having 1.2 million ounces gold, we've got a silver zinc deposit. It's only 10 k's away from Superpit. And the people like myself say, why would you have silver, 2,000 grams silver, 10 kilometers away from a Superpit? Something must have happened there. And you've got zinc there as well. So I think really there's a lot going on. And with Norseman, you've got a great company called Pantoro, who've gone in JV, I think 50% with Norseman Gold. I believe they're doing a fantastic job there. And I think that's going to be a very big success in the future. The biggest issue at the moment in Kalgoorlie and all those areas is mill capacity. You can have a mine. If you don't have a mill or toll treating on a mill, you've got a problem because you don't have a cash flow. And that's one of the biggest issues around at the moment.
I think toll treating has its issues, but that's where the bottleneck is, right? That's
exactly. Look, I owned Burbanks in Coolgardie for 18 years with my business partner Ray Wright. We ran that mill, which became Coolgardie Custom Milling. I bought it off Malg Resources. Coolgardie Custom Milling, owned it for 18 years. And then I sold it to Ramelius Resources, who've just sold it recently to another company. 150,000 ton a year mill. We did toll treating for 50 companies. It was fantastic. But you can be out there finding gold and putting it through and whatever, and you produce that gold bar. And who produces that gold bar? If you don't have your mill, you've got nowhere to put it through. If you're toll treating, you've got to afford to toll treat. So not only the toll treating, the transport from the mine to the mill with the toll treating to make sure you make a good dollar on it.
And that's what's the lesson I learned from Silver Lake was they bought the mill. What was the name of the mill?
They bought Lakewood Mill.
Lakewood Mill.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, your mine's over there, your mill's over there, and that's where I learned how these things work.
That's right.
I was thinking that the mill traditionally always is next to the pit, right? Whereas I thought, no, well, this is like a business. It's like just part of your mechanism of making that gold bar, as you've just said, right? So yeah, it's really interesting when you get into this.
So with the Silver Lakes, Daisy Milano was owned by my client for 20 years prior to that, or 30 years. We were transporting 120 k's from Daisy Milano to Coolgardie and making a good profit on it at that time because the grades were very good. It was 10 gram plus dirt and it was very good. So if your grades are very good, you can afford to transport it distances and put it through a mill. I mean, I think with Silver Lake, they bought Lakewood. Then they made a mistake of getting involved with Takabiana up there, where they bought the mill there, and they came back to Lakewood, and then Silver Lake then merged with Integra, and then they've recently bought out Dore. So there's been a mixture of there, and it's very well run by Luke Tonkin, who is another Kalgoorlie person, Goldfields identity. So I think really, there's going to be a major consolidation in the mining industry everywhere. People are going to take each other out, merge, and this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's good sort of conversation for guys out there because, it's about the making of the business. And a lot of people ask me this question: is that good? Are those results good and things like that? And I always said, look, you want to look for big intercepts, right? You want 100 meters at 2 grams. You don't want 2 meters at 100 grams. That's a fantastic thing, but it's not a mine maker. Whereas when you got 100 meter intercept of decent grades, it's a mine maker. So, and it's good to hear that it's when you were making your gold mine at $300, you were making money. So it's all about the grades and all about the margin. No different to making burgers. If you make it for $5, you can't sell it for $4.90.
That's exactly right. So the principle is supply and demand and pricing. So if you can produce gold at 300 and make a profit, and now you're looking at 2,600, you should be able to. You have to have a look at the margins. Unfortunately, in the last couple of years, we've seen a couple of situations where people have the financial modelling has been wrong. where with mining companies, what they've done is they've said we're going to produce gold at 2 grams, and they don't produce it. They don't look at the dilution factor. They don't look at this. And we've had at least 5 companies run into financial trouble in the last 3 years. And a lot of them within the industry, like myself, have predicted that would happen. You can't say in a model you're going to produce gold at 2.3 gram when historically it's producing at 1.5. You know?
Yeah.
These accountants' figures and financial models.
It's called spreadsheet movie.
Yeah, it's not good enough. It's got to be factual,
Yeah.
and it's got to be based on actual information. And this is a big issue at the moment.
I mean, it's always based on that truth mission, right? Drill the crap out of it. If you can tell me then the grades go from 1.5 to 2.3,
Yeah.
fantastic. Right?
Oh, look, you look at the Rydges model. The Rydges model, which I'm very good friends with Nick Giorgetta and all that crowd.
Ex-Samantha Gold.
Samantha Gold, and then they went to Africa.
Equigold.
Equigold.
Yeah.
Then they went to Rydges.
Yeah.
Rydges. These are now they're involved with Capricorn.
Yeah.
These people are all ex-Kalgoorlie people. They are absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And Nick Giorgetta is one of the highest ranking people in the mining industry I've ever seen in Kalgoorlie, and one of the nicest blokes you'll ever meet in your life.
He doesn't look nice though. He's big and.
Nah, he's like all the I think the background of the. But I think when you look at people like that and how they run it, I mean, we went up a couple of years ago to look at one of their shows up north, and you've got a 2 million ton mill, and there's 3 people working there. It's all this machinery and stuff they've got in there, and they just spit it out, and they're not producing. They're producing gold at 1 gram dirt and making a lot of money. So it's not only the grams, the dollar, it's your cost exercise, how you do it. And I always remember Nick saying to me, look, Ashok, sometimes with the capex, you're better off spending more money up front, so your OPEX is lower in the long term.
Yeah.
And that's what people have got to look. We've seen it now with a lot of mills. I mean, I've seen what's happened with Dacian and Orabanda now, and Gascoigne, and there's been quite a few of those which have, the model has not been that great and has not delivered what they want. So I think really these people with experience, that Nick Giorgetta used, a Mintrex or whatever like that, they're really experienced. They know what's right and what's wrong, And unfortunately in today's market there are people who think they know more than they do, and they don't listen to the old guard, who know a lot more than all of us.
I always tell the guys out there in all the interviews I do, I said, look, the 2 things you need to definitely know is understand the technicals and the management. And I will probably, in many cases, put management first and technical second, because if the management's good, they can make something that's not good, good. You can't have it the other way around. And I've forgotten Nick Giorgetta's, the Samantha Gold guys. They've all done well, right? They went to Equigold in Africa, and they did fantastic well. And those are the guys that they do the work, and you got to, once you see those guys involved, and they never go into things that are suspicious, right? They're always in solid projects.
Look, these people are very. You've got top, you've got Glenn Evans, you've got Rob Mitchell, you've got all these blokes. You look at that Samantha Gold, which I think was Simon Lee before.
Yeah, I worked there for a while.
Yeah, which went into. I mean, I remember the days at Samantha Gold where the employees were given little bars of gold.
I missed out on that
Christmas, or were given a trip to Bali. I mean, it was just such forward thinking.
Yeah.
And then the Equigold, which sold to Lahire for $1 billion, they got involved with Rydges, where there was a big fight with the asset security. They got over that. They did very well with Rydges. Then they jumped down to Capricorn Resources. If you follow these people, the Nick Giorgettas, the Bill Beermonts of these worlds, the Raleigh Finlaysons, these are all top reputable people who've come from nothing to up here, but they are the same person. If you speak to these people, it's like they were 30 years ago. They have not changed.
I remember at Samantha Gold, I was there only for vacation employment, so I don't want to put too much that. But the guys I met, they were different. They weren't there for the wage. They were very, very committed kind of guys. And I remember one guy there. He was almost like a mind you, but he wasn't a mind you. He was just I don't know what you call him, pit supervisor or whatever, but he knew his stuff, and they were just diligent. They just did the job right, and I think that's why they were able to do so well. The culture was so good.
I think really when you're in business, in any business, if you surround yourself with good people, it comes to you. Unfortunately, with a lot of business, I'm not talking about mining, I see, look, I'm a chartered accountant with 3,000 clients, hundreds of businesses I act for. Some people surround themselves with yes people. So the people say yes, yes, yes. You don't get anywhere. And these mining companies do surround themselves with very, very good technical people who question them. And that's what you need to do.
I think one out of that Samantha Gold Group, there's a guy called something Morgan.
Yeah.
And he's gone off and done.
Yeah, Morgan
stuff.
Hart.
Morgan Hart.
Yeah, so Morgan Hart's now involved. Top bloke, come through the ranks there. He's gone to Emerald Resources.
Okay.
Which has also been involved in that bullseye tenement argument with the Chinese company recently, you know?
Okay.
But he's a great bloke. I mean, he's an absolute top bloke, Morgan.
Yeah.
And he was part of that team.
Yeah.
You're right, you know?
And I think you mentioned, is it Evans, something Evans?
Yeah, Glenn Evans. Glenn Evans as well. Rob Mitchell's another one.
Yeah.
There's a whole group of them. But, you know, these people go with the person.
Yeah.
If you look today, in the last week, and you see with Raleigh Finlayson with Genesis, which is around the Leonora Menzies areas, what has Raleigh done? He's brought Morgan Ball in, ex-Saracen. He's brought all of these people, ex-Saracen, Northern Star, into Genesis, okay?
Yeah.
Which is a company he's heading as the MD. They take the people with them. And these people, I mean, if you look at the paper last week, Morgan Ball, who would command a very high price, is only on a 100 grand salary. But there are options, etc.
Yeah,
I mean, it just shows you the thinking of these people. Let's all get together, we'll all do well, everybody does well.
Yeah.
It's not about individuals, it's about everybody.
Look, Ashok, I want to get your thoughts on several things. Maybe I will say the word and you can just give me what comes to mind. Commodity price.
I think that with the problems in the world, with Russia, China, etc., I think commodity prices are going to be high. Whether it's, we're seeing it now with nickel, we're seeing it with gold, we're seeing it with lithium, and nearly all the commodity prices are going up. So I think, you know, I believe we're probably in a couple of years of good times for the commodity prices around the world.
Lithium, do you think this is the real deal?
Well, look, I don't know too much about lithium, but having looked at the investments recently by IGO, we're looking at the Western area situation at the moment. We're looking at there's so many things going on at the moment. I've got friends of mine at Gallon involved in Argentina with the lithium over there. We've seen the comments made by Tesla this week that Musk is saying lithium is costing too much. I might as well mine my own lithium. Certainly with that space and the battery space, if you look at BHP Billiton at the moment, I mean, many years ago, BHP were going to sell off the nickel smelter in Kalgoorlie. It was a dog of an asset because they had environmental issues that they had to pay for. Today, it's absolutely brilliant for them because it's part of the nickel battery operated situation. If you look at Kalgoorlie today, you've got Lynas spending $500 million on the rare earth plants in Kalgoorlie, which is listed on the critical minerals list, 500 million in Kalgoorlie, which is brilliant. There is no doubt, and I talked to Bill Johnson as a minister years ago, that once you start building these plants in Kalgoorlie, it'll be plant after plant.
Yeah.
You start off with one plant, second plant, etc. Zinc, the Chinese company, is spending $500 million on a heap leach plant in Kalgoorlie. And you're going to find there's more plants being built, etc. So I think with that involvement of investment, that these people see that the commodity prices in the future are going to be high, and they want to take advantage of that in that time.
Do you think that we're in our version of this industrial evolution? You know, I used to say that a lot of the oil money that's made came out of the depression in the 20s and 1920s, 1930s. Could this be this just our version or my version of this next step, because we're moving into this no emission world. We're moving into electric cars, electrification of fossil fuel use and things like that. Do you think that is?
Yes, I think really. I'm 65 years old. I'm older than you, and
Only slightly.
And I look at 20 years ago, who would have thought that we'd have Ubers and Uber Eats?
Yeah.
Who would have thought that we were having all this new technology? I mean, you've got iPhones. You're reliant on your iPhone. Who would have thought about that? I think in the mining industry, the same thing is happening. We're going into commodities that none of us have never known anything about. If you ask me about vanadium 5 years ago, I wouldn't have a clue what it is. If you ask me about lithium, but we're all learning palladium. We're seeing all of these, the rare earths. You look at the Lynas operation in Kalgoorlie, which had an operation in Malaysia, and there was a problem there in Malaysia, and now they brought it here. Lynas are going to America, getting probably paid by the American government to do a plant over there. The critical minerals list, which the federal government have nominated, says we will help these companies that involve with critical minerals. We've seen recently in Kalgoorlie with Rydges Resources, where I think they're giving 50, 100 million or whatever as a grant. We've seen one with the Vanadium one recently, where the federal government are going to put money up to help critical minerals in Australia. So it's a different ball game. We've never heard of that before. I mean, the Morrison said there's $2 billion available for critical minerals. And I think it's going to increase. So we're going to find that things like the rare earths plant in Kalgoorlie, which Lynas have got, that's a very unusual situation. They're doing a great job there, and it's going to be good for Kalgoorlie, good for the Goldfields, good for the state government, good for the federal government.
I think vanadium, the thing you mentioned there, I know you mentioned before that you're involved. I was into vanadium, the redox flow battery. AVL was, in the doldrums. It's almost 10 bags to where it was before. And then yesterday morning I saw an article that somewhere in Japan they've just turnkey a redox flow battery for the town. So that's something that we never knew of.
That's true.
5 years, 10 years
so
ago,
the
right?
vanadium deposits, what a lot of people don't realize is vanadium holds battery storage on an industrial scale, which is massive. I'm involved. I happen to be chairman of Horizon Minerals, HRZ. John Price is the managing director, and Peter Bilby, who's another great chairman of IGO, etc., like that, previously. We've owned 25% of a vanadium deposit, which is Richmond Julia Creek in Queensland. That deposit is 1.8 billion tons of vanadium. It's the largest oxide deposit in the world. It's based in Queensland. We're doing a spin-off with that. It's ASX mentioned. We own 25%. We've got together with the JV partners. We're going to float a company, a vanadium company, and 1.8 billion tons of oxide. The strip ratio is 1:1.
That's good.
The capex is only about $250 million. The mine life is 110 years. With the 20-year mine life, the NPV is over $1 billion. This is all on HRZ, ASX information available. So we see that as very big. And I think things like vanadium, which people didn't know much about, the capacity for that to hold the battery storage on an industrial scale is massive, particularly with also the it's used for steel to make it tougher and stuff like that.
Yep.
So all of these new things. The issue with vanadium, I think, in the past is that you've had projects which are basically not oxide, which means the surface. They've been hard rock. And when you've got hard rock with vanadium, your capex expenditure relating to your mill is a lot higher. With having an oxide deposit where you just free dig 1:1, it's very, very profitable.
I just thought that, people just couldn't spell vanadium. That's why they didn't know what vanadium was.
Well, it's like lithium. I mean, who would have known what lithium is?
Mate, that's another story.
I mean, I look at the ones recently, in the last 10 years, where I think there was a company, I don't know, Coventry Resources or something, with, where they had the asset, the gold asset, and they didn't realise they had lithium there. And Kidman Resources came along and bought it and said, we've got vanadium. We've got lithium.
Lithium. I think that's the kid with Mount Holland, right? Mount Holland Goldfields.
And we've seen it recently. Red Dirt, another good company.
Yes, that's
They
right.
bought the underground operations for Ora Banda within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They didn't say anything about gold. They announced lithium.
Yeah. They were just recently on Coffee Samso, so that was a good story.
Yeah, they're a great company. Yeah.
You know, I'm going to quickly go through this because we're probably putting lots of people to sleep. But mind you, it's a fantastic conversation. But the one that I call it the dirty word, but I think a bit like vanadium in the sense that it's taken this while for people to accept it and move it. It's uranium. I mean, we know nuclear energy is the cleanest of the carbon footprint and things like that, but obviously it's had its issues and it's a very, very contentious word. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, look, I personally reckon that uranium, if you look overseas, is something that we should be looking at. I think the federal government should encourage it as long as it's done in a very safe way. And I think it could save a lot of money everywhere in relation to what's going on. Look, I mean, when you're involved in businesses and you see the amount of money that we all spend on electricity, etc., like that, it's just absolutely ridiculous. I own a hotel in Kalgoorlie. Our electricity bill is $3,000 a week. We pay 180 grand in electricity a year. I mean, to me, it just doesn't seem right. And that applies to the mining industry, etc. So if we can get products that reduce the cost of us operating, it's very good. And I think uranium is like that. It can be done safely. It's been done overseas. We've got some of the best uranium deposits in the world here. And I think the government, whether it's Labour, Liberal, whatever, should be encouraging uranium all over the place. And if it's done in a safe way. You should not be looking at uranium and saying, oh, it's a dirty word. You should say, look, this is the future. This is what we need to do. How can we do it in the safest way and what's best for everybody, which takes into account native title, the indigenous situation, etc. Let's do it properly and let's all do it together. And I think it's got to be a communal thing, support of it. I think we've got to get away from things that we see as not being right and look and say, well, how can it benefit? It could benefit the whole community. That's my thinking on that.
Oh, that's great. I think, look, I want to end with, what is Ashok doing these days?
Look, I'm complicated. I'm a chartered accountant. I've got an accounting firm in Kalgoorlie and Mandurah. I'm involved with chairman of Horizon Minerals. I'll take a couple of more boards. Look, I've been asked, in the last 3 months, I've been asked to go on the board of probably 6 public companies, 3 as chairman, and I've knocked them all back. I'm enjoying myself. I'm 65. I like helping a lot of people. I help a lot of businesses. And I want to be just healthy and happy. And I want to do the best I can do for the people around me, and which includes all the people in the Goldfields. And you've got some very good people there. And, I'm grateful for what I've got. Look, when I was in my article, when I was 18 years old, and my dad said to me, you got no money, you got nowhere to live, you got no job, you're on your own, but you got personality. And if you ever do well, never ever forget where you came from. So people like myself, I look at it and I say to myself, well, look, I'm like that 18-year-old kid had nothing. And it's important for people like me and everybody who's done well to help to put a lending hand to everybody below. And I don't mean below in that extent, who need a hand. And I think in the mining industry, it's very important. That person there is an apprentice electrician, an apprentice boilermaker. They're as important as anybody else. And in life, treat people like you want to be treated.
Well, that's the best way to end the conversation, Ashok. And Ashok, look, really appreciate you coming on and sharing your thoughts with us.
And you're all welcome to the Palace Hotel. We've got a lovely restaurant upstairs, which my chef's worked for me for 20 years. He's from Dublin, Ireland as well.
Okay.
And we've got an Irish pub downstairs, so all welcome to come and say hello to me anytime.
Yeah, we will do. I'm pretty sure we'll be there during Diggers, and I'm sure you'll be there in full flight.
Yes, we've got a lot of functions at Diggers and Dealers. The Palace Hotel used to be owned by the Stokes families who owned Diggers. So we've got a very close association with the Diggers and Dealers, which is now owned by Nick's daughter Sharon and Miles. A lovely couple. They own Diggers and Dealers. They've done a great job of Diggers and Dealers, and we always, Suzanne Christie and really good people, really good. The Diggers and Dealers group are very, very good people, and they're very good for Kalgoorlie. It's important for us to have Diggers and Dealers in Kalgoorlie, and the Kalgoorlie public appreciate it. We think it's great having it there, and we like looking after the people who come there. When you go with Diggers and Dealers in Kalgoorlie, you're there for 4 days. You're not going home at night, so that's why you mix with all the people. And there's a lot of deals done at Diggers and Dealers in the last 25 years.
Yep. All right, Ashok, thank you, and really appreciate it. And maybe, down the road somewhere we can have another conversation.
No worries at all. You're always welcome.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, before we do that, we've worked with Florence Drummond over the this year, and Florence Drummond started Indigenous Women in Mining Resource, and I said to her, look, let's do something together, and she said, look, we can have this coffee. So she's come up with these packets of coffee from an Indigenous business, and it's a token gift
Thank
to
you.
people
Thank you very much. No, I've had a lot of involvement with Indigenous because I, for 18 years, was the auditor of all the Aboriginal communities. Nanganawilli, Wiluna, Mount Margaret, Cosmo Newbury, Leonora, Norseman, Caps Coolgardie, Ningabai. So I was very good friends with Cedric White, Ben White's dad.
Okay.
So I was involved very heavily with the Indigenous.
Okay.
And that's why I know a lot of the Indigenous as well.
All right.
A lot of the elders, yeah?
Yep. So, yeah, anyway, so we've enjoyed the coffee and we'll go from there.
No, absolutely fantastic, yeah?